Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Monica from Dipalo Ventures, and we are in yet another episode 5 from Trades from the Hard Side. This time we have Tem from Nomadic Ventures and Rafiq Ahmed from Dipalo Ventures. We're going to dive direct into introductions. So I'm going to give you the floor. Tem, please go ahead and introduce yourself.
Yeah, happy to. Thank you for having me, Monica. I really appreciate the opportunity to come on and then speak. My name is Tem Tumurbat. I'm based in Denver, Colorado. I'm one of the co-founders and managing partners of Nomadic Venture Partners, and we are an early stage climate tech VC firm investing in technologies that are accelerating decarbonization in the hard-to-abate sectors, specifically mining, the downstream manufacturing, as well as heavy-duty transportation. As far as my own personal background, I used to be a private equity investor prior to starting this firm, specifically focused on the mining industry. And prior to that, I was actually a mining engineer. I worked as a mining engineer for a large gold producer called Newmont. And prior to that, I was actually an entrepreneur myself. I started a trucking company many years ago. So my journey has been sort of unorthodox in that. Became an entrepreneur first, when started mining engineering, got a degree, practiced that for a little bit, and then switched career into finance. But then really got passionate about solving for climate change, especially in the hard-to-abate sectors, and bringing my own background and skill set to this sector. Hopefully, we can make some great investments.
Hey, Tim, I can't see your video, so I'm not sure if this is set up right or not. Monica, can you look into that?
Yeah, it's on both of you, so it's fine on our side.
So Tim, is your video on?
My video is on. I can't see your video as well. I think we're having issues.
Sorry about this, everyone. Yes, turn off whatever spotlighting. Is that Chris?
Yeah. It's both of your names are on the screen versus, oh, there you are. There's Rafiq.
Can you just turn off remove the spotlight so that maybe that's. Sorry. Yeah, I don't know. Monica can figure that out. We can start, I suppose. Hey, thanks, Tem, and of course, Chris, you're on there as well. So Tem, we have a common interest in climate tech, and that's one of the reasons I wanted to bring you on and start talking about climate early. Well, not early. It's almost too late. But let's be positive here. So we have one of the things that we want to explore today is just what that means for you guys as climate investors at Nomadic. What it might mean for us at Dipalo as we head into more of a climate hard tech focus, slightly different from yours. And then really for the audience, it might be interesting to know what methodologies we end up using. So I've got a bunch of things I want to ask you. I've got a little bit about our methodology. We could touch on our portfolio. So really, just make this interactive, and then if there's audience questions. So Monica, I can see Tem now, which is good. Maybe you can go off of video or however way we want to do it. So Tem, I saw you 2 weeks ago, or was it last week? Time flies. The Industrial Climate Summit at the School of Mines. Walk the audience through what that was like hosting your first climate conference.
Yeah, happy to. So as Rafiq said, on June 1, we held our first Industrial Climate Tech Summit with partnership in partnership with the Colorado School of Mines. And one of the reasons, I think, for the audience, I think to have a bit of a background is probably helpful. One of the reasons why we wanted to have this conference was when my business partner Bachimeg and I were looking for conferences to attend that actually address the heavy industries, specifically the mining, the downstream manufacturing, as well as heavy duty transportation sectors in this region. We couldn't really find anything that was really specific for that. So we said, well, what if we actually put on a conference ourselves that would convene the industry players, right, all the way from the innovation incubators, the accelerators, to early stage investors, to the ultimate, right, end user customers, the big companies that are looking for innovation, as well as the universities who play a role. Also, right, if you look at the financing or capital stack with respect to financing these projects, what does government play a role? And we said, what if we actually bring everybody together and just have a one-day conference and then have a really in-depth conversation around some of the issues that we see in mining and manufacturing, and that sort of led to this conference. We said, okay, we're gonna actually invite a bunch of people, see what we can get out of this, and it actually was really interesting. I'll give maybe a couple of stats to kind of give people an idea of what the scale of this conference was. We invited the local, right, community of climate tech participants, as well as people who are like Rafiq, right, working on their own strategies, investment strategies, or helping, right, build the climate tech ecosystem around the U.S., and then see if we can right, attract sort of outside talent and share information and see what we can learn from others, because sort of Colorado is got its own hub, but it's not as big as the ones in New York and San Francisco. So we wanted to sort of attract talent and exchange ideas. And we had 130 people actually sign up, and only a few people, I think 2 or 3 people who couldn't come because of COVID. But half that people came from out of state, right? Like places like New York, Boston, Chicago, San Francisco, San Diego. So in my view, I think it was a huge success, because we really wanted to invite, right, people to come in and share with us, right, what their thoughts and perspectives were on climate tech investing. The other thing I would say is half the participants were climate tech founders and companies, as well as PhD students who are working on a very interesting idea to commercialize their some kind of a very niche technology that they've developed under their university or national lab roofs. So that was really interesting. And then also having the corporates on the other side, like Newmont and UL and Shell, to sit through the presentations and panel discussions to hear some of the innovations that are being incubated in the early stages, to get some ideas on, okay, what could we do to start taking some actions now that we have, right, made these announcements to reduce their emissions. For instance, in the case of Newmont, reducing their emissions by 30% by 2030, right? But they now have to start thinking about ways to achieving that. And I think it was really helpful in that it connected the right people. So that was probably the second biggest takeaway. And maybe the last thing I would mention, the third one, I think this comes from our keynote speaker, Morgan Bazilian, who is the director at the Payne Institute at the Colorado School of Mines. They do policy research analysis. One of they're thought as one of the leaders in this space. He gave a great presentation on the importance of he gave a presentation on the entire, status of the
I really enjoyed that.
but yeah. But then he touched on the importance of the mining industry, the commodities industries, and the roles they play in providing the raw and processed materials that go into making car batteries, right? Solar panels, wind turbines, and what that means when the U.S. depends on countries like China, right, to source some of these critical minerals and metals. So I think that was quite different in a way that if you go to any other climate tech conference, you don't sort of get that very in-depth analysis on the upstream value chain of where all this innovation comes, and for us to achieve these ambitious goals of adopting EV, for instance, right? What does that mean in terms of the commodity sector, right? We have to mine so much more, right? And then we all know that the mining itself is inherently not the most sustainable industry. So how do we sort of balance that? It was a really interesting discussion. So I think this first conference was, in my opinion, a huge success, and when we're going to have another one next year around the same time, potentially in Chicago. So if you're interested in the heavy industry, specifically the mining, the downstream manufacturing, as well as heavy duty trucking, yeah, definitely reach out to us. I'd love to share what we know, as well as learn from you.
So one of the things that I thought was interesting from a product design standpoint, the professor that joined from MIT on video early in the first day talked about how products need to be designed for the great temperature changes across the planet. So 140 degrees in New Delhi, I think it was in April of this year, and consistently 140 degrees in Dubai all the time, to Chicago going from wearing sweaters 2 days ago to complaining about being at 100 yesterday, with a tornado warning in between. So this climate volatility is going to impact today's product design, because our products have to work in more extreme conditions. So people talk about net zero by 2050, reducing temperature by 2 degrees or 1.5. I mean, that's great, but there are places in the world where it's not going to be 2 degrees or 1.5. It's going to be 5 degrees. It's going to be at much higher variances. So that was an interesting takeaway. No, great job on organizing the summit. Tell us a little bit more about how you and your partner Bachimek, who's actually from Chicago, tell us about how you came together, why now, and kind of what the thesis is of your fund. Yeah,
happy to. So Bachimek and I actually know each other for, I think at this point, 9 years now. We first met at a Mongolian. We're both Mongolian, by the way, and we both met at this or attended this one conference that was designed or was put on for the Mongolian community, and that's where we met, and we got connected, and we actually had a group of people at the conference who were discussing some of the challenges of first generation immigrants, Mongolian immigrants in the U.S. struggling to sort of get their place in the work places in the U.S. and then also the challenges of advancing through the corporate ladder, if you will, right? So we discussed and said, okay, what if we actually started a nonprofit organization together to help younger Mongolian professionals? And that's kind of what we did, and ever since then we've been co-directors of this organization called MNG Summit. Fast forward, this was at the end of 2020. I was discussing with her about my own personal career changes and plans, and we sort of came across the idea of, okay, what if we actually try to put our own skill sets and what we know to the use for something that was that would benefit the greater population. And we immediately said, well, we're both very passionate about solving for climate change, right? What could we do here? And I was an investor at a firm called Resource Capital Fund at the time, and I said, okay, I'm interested in actually starting a fund myself or investment firm myself to pursue a strategy in this field, right? Would you be interested? So that kind of led to us, actually pulling the trigger, and I left the firm early last year, and then we spent a good part of 2021 working on the thesis. And the thesis is really around investing in early stage companies to help fund technologies that would accelerate this decarbonization efforts in the sectors that we are most familiar with, which are mining, manufacturing, and transportation. And the reason we're sticking to that is because there aren't that many. It's quite interesting with all the craze in the climate tech investing world, how many billions of dollars that are pouring into this sector. If you actually sort of look closely, there aren't that many specialists who are tackling these hard to abate sectors, which account for 30% collectively, 30% of the global emissions. Yet they only receive 9% of the VC investments. So there's a bit of an imbalance there, especially in these sectors. There aren't that many specialists playing, and certainly we haven't found any other investment firms that are coming into this space with that exact background, having worked in the mining industry, being an industry participant, having started a trucking company, understanding what they actually do, understanding the challenges, and saying, hey, look, we're going to invest in those technologies to address that. We haven't really found anything. So we said we're actually going to focus on that. We're going to invest in early stage companies and try to make a difference. So that's the impetus for this story. But ever since launching it, so we launched our firm in August of 2021. Since then, at this point, I think we've looked at 342 potential investment opportunities, started making investments. We have some really interesting companies that we recently made investments to. I'm sure we'll get to that in a bit. But what we're at this point focusing on is capital efficient technologies, so light hardware coupled with digital solutions or purely digital solutions. The reason for that is in the industries like mining, oil and gas, there are plenty of opportunities actually to deploy a digital solution today that we can make 2, 3, 4, 5% efficiency gains, which can have a massive impact on their emissions, because these industries are large volumetric businesses, A couple percentage improvement in their efficiency can translate into millions of tons of CO2 savings. So that's what we're trying to tackle. We're trying to invest in practical solutions, easy to scale and deploy, that these companies can meaningfully start reducing their emissions rather than just announcing that they've pledged to something.
Oh, very cool. Actually, for those of you who are new to this webcast or the series that we do, it's around hard tech. We don't focus on any specific aspect as long as it's within the hard tech realm. Maybe I should give a little bit of an introduction to Dipalo as well, and then we could sort of bounce off each other in terms of what's in the portfolio and then how we end up selecting these companies. So I'm going to do a little screen share real quick. And being lazy, I'm going to leverage a deck that I'm using next week at the Collision Conference in Toronto to teach a masterclass on kind of the same subject of methodology and how we select, what's that selection process like at VCs. Can you guys see the screen on the
yes.
On the webcast, Monica?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. So basically, in terms of introduction, we're hard tech investors. We're product experts, and so as Tem is an expert in kind of the mining and transportation and manufacturing, we're experts in building physical products. And we started Fund 1 from a standpoint of bringing that expertise to founders. In addition to capital, we would help them as sort of mentors or guides. The way we do that is through an actual program called the residency. Initially, in its first incarnation, it's been a lightweight model, capped at a couple of months of effort, etc., where we are looking at several domains from customer experience to data science to core engineering, mechanical, electrical design, contract manufacturing, supply chain. So those are where the domains where we have the most expertise. We do this through residency partners. So as a fund or as a fund brand, we sort of bring this combination of product expertise and being able to look at hard tech sectors that generally don't get a lot of investment. So we put together, in the first fund, we have 10 on this slide, but there's an 11th company that we haven't announced yet. And in terms of the types of things we invest in, it's ranged. There's been some med tech, health and wellness plays, but there's also been a couple of more climate-centric investments that we've done. So I'm going to just talk about a couple real quick. One is Material, and they make a graphene-based polymer additive. It goes into other products, such as seeds, which you can see here in the image, or bats or fishing rods. Ultimately, there will be, RVs and other things that, sorry, I should share it a little bit broader. Is this easier? Is that better?
Yes.
Okay, great. So Mito is a company that basically is trying to crack this code of making more durable products that are lighter in weight. And graphene is a very carbon friendly solution. In fact, they made The Economist, I think, a month ago, where finally the killer app in graphene is coming, and it also competes with carbon nanotubes, which is another technology. Graphene is the thinnest level of carbon. If you take it down to, I believe, just the single sort of sheet of carbon, that's graphene. And so it's very interesting to see how graphene will get adopted more. It's been around for 20 plus years, but in terms of actual applications of graphene, it's an exciting time to be invested in a company like Mito. Secondly, we have, oops, I went the wrong way. We have another company in our portfolio that I would consider, in our Fund 1 portfolio that I would consider materials or climate related, and that's Azumo, Chicago-based, and there might have been a typo in the previous slide. Mito is actually Indianapolis-based, but what Azumo does is it reduces the energy use of displays. It's a frontless technology, so it's a thin film that sits just under the glass in your LCD panels and your tablets and cell phones and so forth. Even Lyft is using it for e-bikes. And so these guys are able to send light through that using a single LED and a light sensor. So instead of using millions and billions of LEDs, you use a single one. The energy usage reduction is pretty significant at 90%. And it can not only go in these devices like phones, it could be used on billboards, it could be used advertising surfaces, curved surfaces, etc. So it's very exciting, and they're getting a lot of traction now. And co-investors include some pretty serious funds, Savage from Saudi Arabia, etc. So that's an exciting Chicago-based company that we love. I obviously can't figure out my down slide. Yeah, so Tem, I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about what you've been investing in, and then we could, I have some couple more slides on our methodology. Maybe we can go into that in a second or so, but I'll let you, I'll flip back to you.
Happy to.
Yeah,
happy to take your lead on it. So, feel free to take discussion as you see fit. But just maybe quickly, I'll mention three companies that we've recently invested in. So one is a company called VoltPost. What they do is they simply take existing infrastructure like lampposts and then turn them into EV car chargers. So it's a hard tech, also combined with a pretty intuitive software that they're working on. A solution
I met them in Denver. Yeah, they look.
That's right. Cool. Yeah, exactly. So their team is actually based out of New York, as well as San Francisco, and very exciting company. They did a pre-seed round, raised a pre-seed round in November of last year. We were part of that, and this is a company that's got a really strong team of co-founders who came out of Samsung. And have a really unique, view on what EV chargers should be, right? Instead of just being this utilitarian, device, right? They're really focused on user experience, and once they come out, I think everybody will be impressed by their ingenuity. So
I think they were saying there's 26 million lampposts in the U.S. and they're going into communities and using sort of the electricity already going into the lampposts as the backbone for their charging platform. So that's
absolutely, yeah.
Where you do it.
Yeah, exactly, right. So there are millions and millions of these lampposts already. Like, I mean, if you look out your window right now down to the street, right, you can probably count, right, dozens and dozens of lampposts
behind my window.
Yeah, dozens and dozens of lampposts down there, right? And especially in areas like where you are right now, right? People want to buy EVs, but since they don't have their own personal garages to charge their cars, right? The saturation rate is going to plateau out, and it's going to be very, very limited because you don't have that infrastructure built. However, though, if you look at lampposts, right, they're everywhere. They're basically every other 100 meters or so on the street, and if you can tap into that and actually get level 2 charging, like that's a pretty logical way to start deploying EV chargers and help people get access to or get their EVs even in places like downtown Chicago. So that's a very compelling story that we've backed and working to help them out as they develop their the technology over the next few months.
Very cool. And then what were the other two that you invested in? So this was more in the mobility area, I suppose.
Yeah. This is the second one is a company called Banyan Infrastructure, which is a leading green project financing tool. It's basically a climate tech, fintech, software as a service platform that streamlines origination, syndication, right, underwriting, and servicing of sustainable infrastructure project loans. Large commercial banks, when they provide loans to these large projects, they typically, focus on the mega projects, right, billion plus type of capex projects. And then the reason for that is they have a very large cost component that they have to justify, right? I mean, this entire process is quite labor intensive and costly. In order for them to justify their fees, right, they need to, right, focus on somewhat of a large and mega project. However, that leaves out these small and medium-sized projects not being able to tap into competitively priced capital. And then what these guys try to do is they have this platform that if you were a commercial bank that was using it, you can technically, right? The hope is that you can use the system to provide loans to, let's just say, right, $10 million projects with the same effort and time and cost as you would with $1 billion project, and making it very efficient and cost effective to deploy a lot of capital into these distributed energy systems.
Where are these guys based? Where's that startup based in?
Yeah, they're based in San Francisco.
Okay.
Yeah, one of the co-founders came out of Generate Capital, where she saw firsthand experienced this challenge, right, firsthand, and said that this is incredibly inefficient. And I can also say the same thing. When I was with my previous firm, Resource Capital Funds, when we did project finance loans, right, and you go through the same exact due diligence process that takes months, right, whereas with this tool, right, companies can expedite that process very, very quickly. And
your third?
The third one is a company called Vexa. This is a marketplace for distributed energy systems, on-site energy systems, right, for remote assets. So this is perfect for the mining industry, given many mines are remotely located. Oftentimes they're not connected to the grid, right? So they basically buy these large Caterpillar diesel gensets to power their operations. And then what this platform could do for them is, right, if they're looking for a sustainable on-site energy solution or an energy mix that's a bit more sustainable, they can get on this platform and easily get a design put together by the system, and then send that design out for RFPs from suppliers to bid on. So very interesting technology, trying to accelerate the adoption of on-site energy systems, sustainable systems in spaces like mining.
So it seems like you guys are kind of going across hardware and software. You're going the coast, New York and San Francisco as well. So you kind of got your geography pretty much wherever the deals are. Where are you finding deal flow? Is it more in sort of San Francisco, New York markets, or in what I call the rest of the U.S. or U.S. center elsewhere? So
yeah,
what's the deal flow like?
Good question, right? We actually have a preference for the Midwest, right? We want to be investing in the Colorado Clean Tech region, or right in the Illinois Basin or Ohio Valley, right, in the sort of the Rust Belt, including the Rocky Mountain region. That's our preference, but our first 3 deals ended up being elsewhere, which is totally fine. From a deal flow perspective, right, we are solely focused on the U.S. We're not making investments outside of the U.S. hopefully eventually in the future when we have follow-on funds, we'll potentially expand that scope. But we're currently more focused here, and the most of the deal flow that we look at are starting with Colorado, right, and then other pockets of the ecosystem around the country. I mean, right, San Francisco, LA, New York, Boston. I mean, they have great climate tech innovation hubs, and they generate a lot of interesting companies out of those spaces. So we're definitely plugged into those, but also Colorado as well as Chicagoland have a pretty robust ecosystem. So those are the spaces we're looking at.
I'd like to see Chicago and like the Illinois, Michigan, Indiana area start to lead on this. And I think we're starting to see early signs. Generators just started a sustainability or climate accelerator, I think is what they're doing. M-Hub in Chicago has in their accelerator, they have the climate cohort there now. They've just finished the MedTech previously. I think this is their third cohort. We're working with Centropolis in Michigan out of Lawrence Tech, and Dan Radomski runs that, and he's got a climate focused accelerator as well. So as we move more and more into climate in our own evolution, hopefully we're partnered with all of these entities and finding a lot of compelling climate related deals. I mean, there's good Techstars programs that are focused around climate specifically or materials out of Indianapolis, Heritage Group, etc. So there's a bunch of things going on in the region as well. Should we touch on diligence a little bit, because I think we touted that as part of our agenda today. I mean, just to keep ourselves honest, maybe I will share what we do, and then you can speak to what's happening on your end as well. Can you see the screen? I had issues last time with not being full screen. Yeah, so this is our diligence process, and this is again more around Fund 1. It's less about climate or non-climate types of investments, but we have a screening process. Obviously, everyone does, and these submissions of decks and pitches come from every angle, right? If you look at any VC's email thread, there are dozens and dozens of mails every day with somebody pitching something. So you need a good filter to figure out what you're looking at, what fits, what doesn't fit. So the faster we can get to that fit, the better. So as a rule of thumb, we always invest in software and data. Everyone's got software and data, but we're looking for hard tech investments, right? So if something's purely software, we probably don't do it. So there's a yes or no. There's a screening score that we look at several factors, and sustainability elements are important in that as well, and will be increasingly more important. So we assign a score, and then based on that, even the hard tech ones may get filtered out. The review process really is the crux of what venture capital does, right? I mean, you decide to spend, a little bit of time or a lot of time, depending on how interesting the tech is, how much time do you have to spend to figure it out, who you have to talk to. So there's meetings, there's internal meetings, there's experts that might come in if you need additional sort of bandwidth. So in our ecosystem, we have a good set of people that might be experts in certain areas. And so as we move more into materials, chemicals, etc., the core engineering that we have in-house may not be enough. And so, from an advisory standpoint, we've got good people that we're bringing onto the platform. Our main output is a investment memo, and based on that, I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but we're trying to get to an investment memo, right? So you don't invest. An investment memo itself is an investment of time. So you're trying to make sure that you're only writing it if you're almost sure that you want to invest in this company. Otherwise, you don't take it that far. So in between this initial diligence and the investment memo, we have some technical pieces. So we call it the tech intake form. And we try to understand whether we can help this company. Are they early enough in their product development process? Are they in sort of prototyping stage? Have they got to a demo? How far away from commercialization are they? So residency is only suitable if the team, if the product is early enough. If it's shipping or about to ship, residency doesn't make as much sense. We could still make a direct investment if we don't take them through the residency. We could invest even in a Series A or B company out of Fund 1. We've done that. And so that's the other sort of alternative path that you can head down. So then one of the things we're trying to do is financial diligence as well. It's not just technical. It's financial and looking at numbers, looking at the market space, looking at what traction a startup might have with customers and so forth. And of course, you know, the rosy pictures that are found in financial projections need to be sort of cut down or tempered, if you will. And so we you know, apply discounts based on how solid, you know, the company may or may not be. We then go to an investment committee, which is the general partner plus you know, residency partners, others that are involved. So there's usually 4 or 5 people on the investment committee. And based on that, yeah, it's either a direct investment or we go into this residency, which is again a 6-week type of program to tighten up plans and address any gaps that we found during our analysis. Ongoing portfolio support at different VC firms would look, you know, somewhat the same or different. But for us, the key again is being really good product guides, and of course helping to connect to others in the ecosystem and other VCs, etc. So that's the process we've gone through. Yeah, Tem, I don't know. I mean, not to have you whip out a PowerPoint slide with charts, but like what does the climate world look like? Or maybe take us through what you guys might have done on these first deals, or how is that process evolving at all?
Yeah. So before I get to that, I just have a couple of quick questions. Could you remind me your stage focus as well as how long this process takes for you?
Yeah, good question. So our stage focus for the fund in general is pre-seed to Series A.
Okay.
And ideally, you know, pre-seed and seed is where we play. Series A is more opportunistic. But yeah, pre-seed and seed might be the best way to describe it.
Got it. Okay.
And then how long this process takes? So the process should take much less time than it actually does take. And I guess it looks complicated with several steps, but you really, you know, the investment isn't something that we can do in a week or two. I mean, I would say our goal is between 30 to 60 days. Typically, most investments fall within that. I mean, founders often say, hey, we're about to close around next week. Those are not the deals where we can apply a process like this, right? So we want you know, so as you know, so it just kind of depends on when you find the deal and how you can best go about helping them. Sometimes there's not enough time to be involved.
Yeah, I know that's very helpful. I appreciate that. And now ours is very similar, right? I think every sort of a VC firm has, you know, something like this, right? Whether it's this exact process or some version of this process. And we certainly have ours, which is very, very similar to yours, right? It all starts at the deal origination, right? Doing initial screens. And then what we do is we decide whether we want to, so before we decide whether we want to do a desktop review, we check for alignment with our thesis. What that means is we're looking for specific sort of things, right? And our guiding principles are typically, you know, based on these 4 things, and they are climate impact, right? Does this company have the potential to create significant climate impact? And is this a practical application? That's the second one. The third one is it capital efficient, right? Is this going to take, right, tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars to fully deploy, or is this something that we can easily commercialize. And then the third one is this climate equity, right? Is this going to help create some kind of a just transition for sensitive communities and then people around the world that are actually going to be the true users. So those four are our investment guiding principles, and we check for that at the initial screening stage. And then we decide whether we want to do a desktop review, and that's simply a decision that we make as a team and say, okay, this is interesting enough, it fits our thesis, it meets our principles. Let's do some work on our side. And after that, right, if we come away with strong sense that this is really interesting, then we ask for a meeting with the team. We interview them, or we get access to their data room. We really like to get our hands dirty, right? I think it speaks to our background in private equity, where we're so used to doing very extensive due diligences that would last anywhere from 3 months to 9 months, right? I know we can't do that with pre-seed stage companies just because they simply don't have those kinds of information. However, we do still ask for whatever they have, even including business plans and financial models, despite being a super early stage company. And we're not necessarily looking for specific numbers, or we're not looking for accuracy in those documents, right? We're simply looking to see if founders have thought things through, right? Have they been methodical? Have they accounted for all the risks? Have they thought about all the potential upsides, right? What's their strategy, right? Is this something that this is a project, school project, or is this actually a business that they wanna build? And by looking at the way that they treated those kinds of documents, you can tell a lot by their seriousness, tell a lot by their level of attention to detail, I guess. And the other thing, right, we're looking for is the quality of the team. I think when we evaluate, I guess, companies, right, there are three things we're looking for. I guess three risks we're looking to de-risk. And the first one is around people, and then the second one is around the technology, and then the third one is around the execution, right? Is the team able to execute on the strategy? And if we can get comfortable that this is the right team with the right background, with the right expertise, right, have all the pieces, then we would go on to looking at the technology very deeply and saying, okay, is this a technology that actually has a product market fit, right? Is this something that they've tested right in the market, or are they doing some kind of a pilot, right? Have they gotten some kind of an early indication or early market feedback that this is something that if they truly try to scale it, it'll be somewhat successful? And if the answer is yes to that, then the final check is this, right? Are they going to be able to execute in a short amount of time? Because I think that's what we're all after, right? VC investments are not the most patient capital. so right, we do want to see growth trajectory, and that's going to lead to some kind of an exit within the fund's horizon. So maybe I'll pause there, but then it kind of goes into like advanced due diligence, right? You actually do the reference checks, and I mean, there's a lot that goes into on the back end, right? Doing technical and commercial workshops, right? Strategy meetings, and then going through IC, right? Actually writing the memo and so on. Very much the same as your process laid out here.
Yeah, that's. I mean, I feel like we could spend a ton of time digging in. There's just so much. I mean, I'm gonna not actually get into the other slides because we're gonna run out of time. But we had again, being lazy, I'm using sort of the deck that I will have for next week. And this is more talking to startups about what's the mystery behind the VC analysis. But the screenings for, I mean, that's kind of what we have as a way to figure out like what exactly are those, what's the investment fit, what's the potential market, etc. So we have a little bit of method to the madness. Kind of funny here to look at the team from back when we did this deck. People were not too excited about that deal, or maybe it was something I said. But yeah, we write the memo. We'll do a returns matrix to look at what you're being told. So I have a question that Monica just put in the chat. Let's maybe just touch on that. I think it came from someone in the audience. So let's just noodle on that. With climate change being such a big focus, and everyone, sorry, let me stop this share so we go back to that. With climate change being such a big focus and everyone trying to solve it, how do you pick companies you want to work with? How do you select companies in your portfolio? Generally, climate-focused companies take a long time to establish. How do you get in touch with early stage if you do? Okay, let me take a stab at that if I can understand the question. So there's a lot, and this may sound a little bit radical. There's a lot of climate closers out there. And I'll just be direct. I mean, there's a lot of climate investors today. There's a lot of climate startups. How many of them are really solving problems worth solving? Is something that I think we need to figure out quickly. Direct air capture is the most inefficient way to capture carbon out of the air. Our focus at Dipalo would be, let's not put carbon out there to begin with, right? So if you want to decarbonize, you have to look at the entire human footprint globally. And so the buildings we live in, the cars we drive, the food we eat, the clothes we wear, the industrial manufacturing backbone of the products we make, it's all in play. So if you ask about climate-focused companies taking too long, that used to be the first couple of waves of green tech, clean tech, these giant utility-sized projects, some of which didn't really yield any results, certainly didn't yield any returns. And so I think we've got a perfect storm of, well, the planet actually is dying, and we can, we'd have to be really stupid if we didn't know the planet is dying. I mean, it's in front of us. And there isn't a more politically correct way, nor should we use more politically correct language. We've been doing this for decades, the stance of, well, we'll just, wait, and climate change isn't real, global warming isn't real, et cetera, et cetera. So now it's a all hands on deck urgency that I think is in front of us. So if you want to pull carbon out of the air and spend a few $1 billion, go ahead, do that. We need to get those efficiencies down and make it economically viable. But at the same time, I need to find a better way to charge my EV car, just like 10-year portfolio company is doing. We might need to replace packing material. We might need to replace the way we make a cell phone. Everything is in play, right? This laptop and how much energy it burns, it needs to come down. So it's the combination of all of this. This building and what kind of energy efficiency is in the windows behind me needs to be in play. So I think it's 100% possible to find climate companies, because guess what? Everybody needs to be a climate company. But then within that, we need to find true innovation, because that's what we're here to back. And then we have to produce results within, a fund's timeline of 7 to 10 years. So it's going to be non-trivial to do this, and that's why I'm excited by the journey. And I think everybody together. Why do I have another climate fund if we're going to go into climate? Because we need to work together, right? I mean, if you go raise $300 million, that's fantastic. Let's work together. Let's go invest. So that's how I think people should look at the problem ahead. So Ted, jump in with your thoughts on that.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with everything what you said. Everything you said. From our perspective, right? We always have to bring it back to the principles that we talked about, right? Is this? I think you've touched on this very well, right? So does this have impact or climate impact, right? Is this going to actually make an impact on the emissions we're producing, right? That's the key part here. There are many companies out there that sort of brand themselves as a climate tech company, right? And those are the ones that I always ask, how are you guys, right? How are you guys actually thinking about reducing emissions or mitigating climate change? And you can find a lot of interesting answers out of that. But if if the company says, hey, look, this is exactly what we're what we're trying to do. This is why we're doing it. We're for instance, right, deploying the software to create more access to capital so that we can deploy more and more of these small and medium-sized energy sustainable energy systems, right? I mean that can have a huge knock-on effect on how many millions of tons of CO2 emissions that we can prevent from going up in the air. And I agree with you. I mean, direct air capture is a very interesting technology, but I think it's far from being feasible today. I'm sure it'll get at some point be efficient enough to remove CO2 out of the air, but in the meantime, we have to do something, right? Which is why we're so focused on practical applications today. I think I forget the second part of the question.
Just generally, how are you getting in touch with early stage companies, or where?
Yeah. So on that, we do a lot of. So my business partner specifically, she does. I mean, she spends a ton of time building the ecosystem around us. She's really good at community building, and that's really her thing. And so she spends a lot of time, right, working with those incubators, accelerators, the university programs, the national labs, the large companies that are looking for innovation, right? Everybody in this ecosystem to really identify, right, one, the problems, right, two, the potential solutions that these companies are going to be needing, and then start having chats with them, right? Even if they're not ready to raise the capital, we still have calls with them. We still hear them out, right? And if there's anything we can do to help them, whether it's making introductions or right, looking at the decks to just give them the feedback, right? Stuff like that we try to offer along the journey because especially in the hard tech, investing side, it takes much longer, right? It's not a simple, app that we're commercializing, right? It's or putting on the app store and letting people buy it. This is something that takes time. This is something that takes multiple rounds of iteration, and throughout that journey, it's always important to have someone's input into that, whether that's an investor. And I think we as investors, we can do a lot to help the ecosystem by doing simple things like that. I mean, for instance, on Fridays we have our office hours, half-hour office hours on Fridays. And if a founder wants to talk to us, right, they can schedule using our calendar link and book a time to get our feedback on whatever they have in their mind. So that's what we try to do. And again, it's a long game, right? It's when you actually really whittle it down, it's not that big of a sector. It's actually quite small. Everybody knows everybody in this space, surprisingly. So the more you can do to help the ecosystem, right, I think that just naturally puts you in a better position to meet those founders early on, help encourage really smart people to tackle problems.
We're gonna there's just so many different aspects to it. You work over the decades to build up credibility, to build up knowledge, to build up an ecosystem. It takes time. So hopefully, we find a lot of great companies between us in the years to come, Tim. And I think, Bachimeg's actually probably going to be at Collision next week, so we'll see her in Toronto as well.
You should definitely quiz her on that. I think that a lot of the stuff that she's done, and as well as we did over the good part of last year, is sort of paying dividends at this point, where right, instead of us having to reach out to companies, more and more companies are actually reaching out to us, right? So that sort of flow of deal has sort of now flipped the other way around.
Nice. Good to see. Yeah, for us, we're 2 years into the first fund. Of course, we were angel investing and so forth in Chicago before that. It's our deal flow is pretty solid. We've looked at over 2,000 deals to make 11 investments out of Fund 1. and most of it is inbound, although I think there's room for very tactical sort of search. And as we scale, that's, I'm going to probably flip a little bit back to more thoughtful search as well. So listen, I think we're out of time today. I clearly see, being able to continue this conversation, bring you back. I hope whoever listens to this, we usually have more people listening on YouTube or later on. So hopefully, if there's questions, where can people find you? Do you want to just give your email or the contact, or how do people get in touch?
Yeah, thanks. Absolutely. Anybody can get in touch with me at my email. So that's Tango Echo Mary at nomadicvp.com. And if you're a startup or founder that wants to pitch us, you can obviously go to our website at nomadicvp.com /pitch, I think, to submit your information, and we're more than happy to talk to you and also help you. So please reach out.
Thank you, Tem. And of course, I'm Rafiq, Rafiq, at dipaloventures.com, or you can find us at info at. We're always looking for great climate companies that are hard tech, but our fund one is also able to invest in other domains that are not climate specific. So we shall talk again, and until next time. So in Tem, until I see you in person next time. Thank you for joining us today. Thank you, Monica. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you so much. And thank you so much, both Rafiq and Tem, for joining us and sharing your views for just in general venture capital and how things work inside the firms from both sides, and putting insights over climate tech, how important it is. I also want to thank you everyone who joined us today on our webcast. If you enjoyed this session, please do join for our future sessions as well. You can find us on all our social media channels, LinkedIn. We do these sessions every third Wednesday of each month. If you have any questions, like Tem and Rafiq both share their emails, you can reach out to them directly, or you can comment in our comment sections for any further questions. We look forward for joining for more interesting topics in future. Again, thank you so much. Have a wonderful week. Till next time.
Thank you for me. Really appreciate it. Have a good one.
Bye, guys.